Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, on today's episode, we are covering the coaches that we don't quite know what to think of after the 2022 season. And we'll start with coaches that going into the year, maybe we weren't super high on, we were kind of low on them, but they had a good season, and that has us questioning things. So, Trey, who's the first coach that fits the bill for you?
That'd be Shane Beamer. I was a little skeptical after that first year. He got the most out of that team. They won 7 games in 2021, but I thought it was more of a fluke. They finished 66th in SP Plus, and then honestly, through the first half of this season, 2022 season, looked like more of the same. But they caught fire at the end of the year. Of course, they just whipped Tennessee, and then won at Clemson. Narrowly lost their bowl game to Notre Dame, finished in the top 25 of SP Plus, 8 wins. And I just think his energy now seems to have gotten a little bit of a buzz into that program. Now there's a top 20 recruiting class. There's still a little bit of a climb to obviously be more relevant in the SEC, but I just got to give him credit. The Gamecocks are in a much better place right now than they were from what he inherited from Will Muschamp. Williams-Brice Stadium is so fun to watch some big games, and hopefully he can continue to prove me wrong initially and have some more great atmospheres there.
Yeah, I like it when South Carolina's good. It was fun when Spurrier got him going for those few years. It was fun to watch. All right, moving on here. Mine is Mike Norvell. I was just kind of low on him before he even got started there at Florida State. Just didn't love the hire. It was just because I was questioning, what he didn't really build Memphis. He was at Memphis before it, and he took over from Justin Fuente there, who got Memphis going. And Norvell did great for 4 years. He had a great record there, but I just always questioned, can he build a program? And maybe he's doing that here at Florida State. First 2 years though, at Florida State was 3-6, followed by 5-7. So a bit of a slow start. I was like, looks like I'm about right. But then boom, this year they go 10-3. It's got me rethinking a little bit about Mike Norvell, and especially when considering they got a decent team, at least on paper at this point, coming back. Jordan Travis, the quarterback, is back in the fold. That's a big piece for them. And then they're bringing in some talented transfers. So things are looking good for them. The only question mark for me is I just don't know if he's recruiting at a level that Florida State, they're capable of top 10, maybe even some pushing top 5 classes there. And right now, overall, they're like at 16th for the 2023 class. Good transfers, but still overall, they're not at that level of being elite. But, so I'm kind of thinking about it in progression terms, maybe like Dabo. Like Dabo first got Clemson to be good. They weren't elite, but top 15, top classes he was bringing in. A few years, get yourself stabilized, and then maybe eventually you can get him to that kind of next level. But we'll see. Yeah. I'm not so sure now.
Yeah. Talk about inheriting a tough situation. I think you're right to think of it like that. It's like in steps, getting them to this level to where next year they're going to be preseason top 10. That's crazy. Then maybe the great high school recruiting will follow.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
My first coach here I have is Dino Babers of Syracuse. So it's just been kind of a roller coaster with him. Started out with 2 4-8 seasons at Syracuse. So of course you're not super high on him at that point. Then out of nowhere, 10-3, finishes top 15 that year. But then Eric Dungey leaves, the great quarterback, of course. They go back to 5-7, 1-10, 5-7. So that at that point you're thinking that 10-3 season's an outlier. He's kind of seemed like a dead man walking. But this past season they go 7-6, outperform their season win total by 2 games. So so that's great. You're thinking, okay, that's good. But also they did lose 6 of their final 7 games. So kind of the way it happened has you unsure. And they lost their offensive coordinator, now Robert and They lost their defensive coordinator, Tony White. So I'm back in this situation where it's like, is he good? Is he bad? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a tough call.
Yep. All right. The next one I'm going to go with is Willie Fritz of Tulane. I always got the sense that people kind of continued to talk Willie Fritz up. always saying, he was a good coach. And I believed it because I heard it. And then I was more skeptical. Like, he had a strong run at Sam Houston and Georgia Southern prior to Tulane. But in his 6 seasons at Tulane prior to this past year, only once was he better than 500 in conference. And that was only 5-3. They went 2-10 in 2021. Now, granted, there was some displacement from the hurricane that hindered them. But this year, going 12-2, beating Cincinnati on the road to win the AAC, get to the Cotton Bowl. I'm not ready to say that, Tulane is going to be a constant threat, but they got Pratt coming back at quarterback next season. So maybe there's not a huge drop-off at first blush as we sit here in January. So we'll see what Fritz has up his sleeve in the future.
Yeah, what a great bowl win, huh, Mike? That was a great one.
Yeah, I'm glad that Trey, he mentioned they got to the Cotton Bowl. He didn't say what happened, which I was thankful for.
Bowl games are kind of bowl games, yeah.
But
got you some slack there, Mike.
Yeah, they might have beat USC. I don't know. I didn't watch the last drive, so I'm not sure. I thought it was like 4th down a couple times though, so they must not have got it.
Yeah, no.
And I think that guy, he dropped the touchdown pass to win, right? It was not.
Yeah, no, I mean they had a 99.9%. So USC, they won. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right, my next one, Chip Kelly over at UCLA, coming back down from the NFL. I don't know. I had some negative vibes on this one, and I mean,
you were very low on this.
I was, and
relative
first 3 years,
most people.
Yeah, it's true. I was, and first 3 years, I was right. 3-9, 4-8, 3-4, stuck with them. But last 2 years, they've gone 8-4, and then 9-4 this year. So some good seasons the past couple. And the recruiting has actually picked up a little bit. I mean, it's not elite, it's not great. UCLA can do better, but they're sitting at 24th for like the 2023 class, and that's fine. Like, you can field very competitive teams with that as long as you coach them up. But he will have to break in a new quarterback finally here, though. DTR is finally gone. He's been there forever. And he's going to have to break in a new running back. So a couple of key pieces that he's going to have to shuffle in, which I'm interested to see. That's an important player for him, especially in his system. But, I wouldn't have guessed we'd be sitting here, 5 years into his tenure, and he would have had it coming off of a 9-win season, especially after the first couple. But he's doing pretty good now. So we'll see if it can parlay, because I'm still not sure. I still have my doubts, but I'm more bullish than I was.
All right. My final coach here is Tim Albin from Ohio. So he was promoted in 2021 after Frank Solich kind of surprisingly stepped down, and Ohio was coming off of a 12-year run where they didn't have a losing season under Solich in that stretch. And Albin's first year, they go 3-9. Curtis Rourke did not have a great year at quarterback, so it's like, ooh, maybe this guy is not going to be there long. But this year, Rourke had a great season at quarterback, and they go 10-4. They might have won the MAC title had Rourke stayed healthy at the end of the year. So we've got one bad year and one good year from Albin. So I'm trying not to overreact to either one and just kind of still in that unsure zone. But if Rourke can come back healthy, because he tore his ACL toward the end of the season, so if he can be healthy in time for this next season, then it could be a good one.
And his running ability is rather important for him. But they never won a MAC title with Solich.
Never did.
So never. No, they won some. They had some chances, man. Just couldn't quite punch through.
All right. Well, let's get to a more negative note here, I guess. Coaches that you initially really liked going into 2022, they had a bad season, and now you're questioning things.
Yeah. I'll get us started here with Billy Napier at Florida. Oof. Yeah. I mean, hey, did a great job at Louisiana, and all three of us were high on Napier. We liked him. Great recruiter. We thought he was just going to do well. And I mean, obviously it's only been 1 year there in Gainesville, but it was a disappointing year. They finished 6-7, inconsistent play on both sides of the ball. And I don't know, kind of the finish of the season is just rough. They were sitting at 6-4, which you can accept because they, up to that point they had, only lost to 3 ranked teams, and then LSU was the other who wasn't ranked at the time. So it's like, okay, it's first year, it's fine. But they lose to Vandy that next game. That just kind of started the trend. And then they get dominated by the Beavers in the bowl game. Tottenham have lost to Florida State. So boom, they finished 6-7. Kind of kills all the momentum. Recruiting, I mean, they kind of have some NIL drama right now with that quarterback recruit.
Yeah,
that they
that's
had,
the
but
thing. That's kind of
that's not
embarrassing, and I
good.
don't know if it's his fault, but it's kind
Yeah.
of not making Florida look good. The Jaden Rashada situation.
Yeah, so that's not that great. And they're 13th overall, which is fine. And there's not a much different. Michael, we've touched on this before. What's the numbers? 5 to 15 is like pretty much the same. It's like hardly any difference between
Yeah,
those
there's like a huge
classes.
drop off after 15th, but yeah, like you said, yeah.
They're in that
Anywhere in
gap
that.
where it's pretty close. It's not elite though, and Florida can be elite. I don't know. I expected more in this first year, so I don't think anybody can be higher on them than they were before.
Yeah, Florida fans are definitely not super bullish right now. It seems like on Napier.
Yeah.
I've got one. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State, of course, has proven a lot. Had an incredible career, but I'm just talking right now. Well, I mean, he almost made the playoff last year. So coming into 2022, you're just thinking, yeah, it's the same old.
And he started this year well.
Yeah, they did get off to a good start, but of course, didn't have the greatest finish, and so they went 7-6, which isn't terrible, but of course isn't great. And the real reason is they lost a ton of contributors to the transfer portal this offseason. 16 players overall, including, of course, Spencer Sanders at quarterback, ton of receivers, their leading tackler, Mason Cobb on defense, just a lot of important guys or contributors. So they also lost Derek Mason, defensive coordinator, just out of the blue decides I'm going to take a sabbatical, which is very odd. You don't hear often. So I'm just starting to wonder if the new NIL era and transfer portal is just not, if Mike Gundy and maybe Oklahoma State are just not suited for it right now. So I'm questioning things. He's still got to give Mike Gundy respect for all he's done. So I'm not just going to say I'm out on him, but I'm in the middle.
I know. Every time you kind of like toss him aside, he bounces back with a crazy year. And that's a similar story to my guy here, Pat Fitzgerald. He's a legend at Northwestern. I've always admired, how much he's gotten out of that program. It's one of the hardest to win at in the Power Five. He's one of the longest tenured coaches in the country. And more often than not, he has overachieved. He's won multiple bowl games recently, top 25 finishes. And every time you kind of think the program is sliding, they bounce back. They won the Big Ten West twice out of the last 4 or 5 years, which is just crazy. But in 2021, they went 3-9. And, most people kind of attribute it to, well, it was one of the off years. They had this success the year before. He's got to rebuild it, come back. Well, the problem was 2022 was a disaster. They went 1-11, back-to-back duds now. And it's kind of coming right after, 2020 when Mike Hankwitz, the longtime defensive coordinator, left. Combine that with a putrid offense the last couple of years. Not a lot of excitement in Evanston. There's been some hazing allegations this offseason. So I'm never going to write him off, but maybe this is the time that he doesn't bounce back and win big.
Yeah, it's easy to see that because of just how bad they were this year too.
Yeah,
it's not like they were unlucky 4-8 or 3-9. They just were pathetic.
Yeah, I'm kind of out at this point right now. Maybe I'll be wrong. It's tough with guys like that. You mentioned both Gundy and Fitzgerald, and another guy like that was I just had
Gary Patterson.
Gary Patterson. Thank you, Ryan. Yes, Gary Patterson. Exactly. You were like, you could write him off, and then he had a great year, but then this time it was for real. This time
it was really the end.
Done. But all right, Ryan, who's your next one?
Yep, next one. Moving on. I'm going to Dave Aranda at Baylor. So a little bit of an up and down here, a little kind of crazy 3 years. First one was the COVID year, and it was it was rough. They were 2-7. You live with that, but then next year, boom, 12-2, win the Big 12. I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment there for Baylor, winning the Big 12. Then this year, there were obviously some expectations coming off of the Big 12 title win, and they actually moved on to a new quarterback because they got rid of Gary Bohannon, kind of giving the reins to Blake Shapen, thinking he might take the next step, but that didn't really work out. So they finished 6-7, and they lost their last 4 games. That's not good. Recruiting just kind of blah, 32nd overall. I don't know. I expected a little bit better this year. And then going into the kind of new Big 12, I'm also not quite sure how that's gonna fit for them. It's a really big question mark. You still got this coming year where it's going to be kind of a mess. You still got OU and Texas and all those new schools coming in. So that's going to be kind of crazy. But after that, I don't know. Do their recruiting even suffer more because you don't have the power players anymore? Does that affect them? I don't know. It's a little worrisome. So I don't know what to think about Dave Aranda right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm still slightly optimistic, on the optimistic side, but yeah, this year was rough. Here's another one. Another kind of I feel similarly about is Mel Tucker, Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
They nailed the transfer portal in 2021. Went 11-2, won the Peach Bowl. Mel Tucker gets a massive, massive deal, which even though you're super optimistic about him at the time, it's still a little scary after one great year to sign
fortunate
such a
year,
big.
But they were good.
They were good and they were fortunate. Yes, they won some close games, but I mean everything recruiting was going well compared to what he inherited was doing a great job. But this year, 5-7, missed out on a bowl game, and now you even start looking back at 2021, like you said, and it's like, well, they were kind of lucky in close games. Like if they had lost one or two more games, would he have gotten this massive deal? Just one season, so I'm definitely not out on him. But you're questioning things. Like one of Dave Aranda or Mel Tucker is going to be a disappointment. The odds are that one of them might be.
How the coaching world works, man.
Yeah.
More often than not, you just don't succeed.
Yep. And
nihilist Ryan.
Well, I mean, facts.
It is true, though. It is true.
Moving on to Jimbo Fisher for me. Now, I haven't really loved him personally, but it's hard not to, appreciate what he has done in his career. And it was kind of almost hard not to buy into at least some of the hype for the Aggies going into this past year. Even if you didn't think it would take off, no one foresaw, what ended up transpiring, the disappointing year. Florida State, all the success. The start to his A&M career was really strong. 8 or 9 wins in his first 4 years, unbeaten in bowl games, top 5 finish in 2020. Last year, of course, he had that incredible recruiting class, and then boom, lay an egg, 5-7. And since in the offseason so far, there's been a ton of transfers out. He's handing the reins of the offense over to Bobby Petrino, who he is a great offensive coach, no doubt about it. But it just kind of seems like Jimbo's making moves that are, almost in desperation to kind of save himself right now. So now I'm just kind of in the mindset of I'm going to sit back, let him prove it to me that he can do it. I'm not positive that he can. Just there's a lot of negative headwind coming at him. But I also wouldn't be surprised given his past success and there is still some talent on that team.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Jimbo's a perfect answer for this question. All right. Last one is players that or coaches that you were unsure of going into 22, and that hasn't changed. You still don't know what to think. So I'll start us out with Kalani Sitake for BYU. I know I probably should have been high on him going into 2022 based on what he'd just done, but I don't know. For some reason, I was just questioning it because he took over a very good and consistent program from Bronco Mendenhall, and his first 4 years there, Sitake went 27-25. So in aggregate, not great. So I was kind of out on him. I was like, I'm not so sure. Then the 2020 season happens. Yeah, it was an easy schedule, but still, they were great.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, maybe that's an aberration and they'll lose a bunch of players, which they did, and then they'll slide the following season. But no, they went 10-3, which was a great season after all that they lost. So I was like, man, I don't know what to think. Maybe I'm wrong. And then this past season, they were number 2 in the country in returning production entering this season.
So much.
With a 10-3 team. You thought, how can they not be good? How can they not be really good? And they went 8-5, which honestly is a little actually better than it looked. They were 71st. Yeah, they were 71st in SP Plus. They really weren't a very good team. So I don't know what to think. Like I really don't know with Sitake.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to say Tom Allen of Indiana. Now, I know Indiana is extremely difficult to win at, but I just feel like people were kind of overplaying Allen a few years ago. Like he's been to 2 bowl games in his 6 years. He did have that breakout random COVID year going 6-2, but outside of that, they've never finished better than 4th in the East. And kind of after the praise and expectations started to rise nationally after that year, the Hoosiers went 2-10 and then 4-8 last year. 2-16 in the Big Ten in those couple seasons. They finished 94th in SP Plus this year. I watched one of his pep talk videos before a game this year. It was kind of cringy. The players didn't seem all that enthused by it. They're recruiting. They're 12th out of 14 in the Big Ten this cycle. Like, I like Allen as a person, of course, but just not sure you can get Indiana, out or into the middle of the Big Ten.
Yep, that's tough. It's tough to do that. I mean, who can get Indiana out there? All right, what's next? What do we got next, Mike?
All right, let's see. Is there a coach you're not sure of, Ryan? Aren't you up
Oh.
next?
Oh, I thought it was you. My bad. I'll take the reins here.
I think it's your turn. We're taking turns here.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I am. Yeah, I'm losing it, guys. I'm a little tired. All right, next one. We got Sam Pittman from Arkansas. So, I think all of us here on us three bros, we were not fond of the hire to begin with Sam Pittman. So we were a little unsure about that. Then he went 3-7 his first year, but it was actually not that bad. We were, there's some close losses, some controversial losses. So it's like, okay, all right, maybe they're getting better. And then boom, they go 9-4 last year. And we're like, hey, good, pretty good. But I was still a little like, even Brett Bielema had a decent year there in Arkansas. It's okay. It's kind of like, you've seen that happen a lot where some coaches can have a decent season, in their first couple of years, but can you really make it last? Especially at a place like Arkansas, it's really hard, with all the competitiveness, all the competitive teams that you got around you. This year, 7-6. It was kind of a meh year. They were 6-6, and then they got that lucky kind of crazy win against Kansas in their bowl game, which was a crazy game. But so 7-6, that's not bad. It's not great. Arkansas is hoping for more. The recruiting isn't that good. 26th rated class, and which is 10th in the SEC, technically 12th if you count OU and Texas, who are coming in pretty soon. So that's not going to get it done. I will say it's nice that KJ Jefferson's going to come back next year. That's welcome news. So that kind of gives you a pretty decent floor for next year. But I don't know. I'm just a little more. I don't know. I don't know what to think about Pittman. He's done a decent job, but I don't know where it's going to go from here.
I hear you. Like, he's done it. Sometimes you just have a feeling about coaches. I'm not saying this is the case here, but like with Tom Allen, like after that 2020 year, even though it's like I can recognize he did something great, I just don't know if it will continue moving forward. Like if anything close to that. So sometimes you have that feeling. But with Pittman, it is with turnover on the coaching staff, we'll see.
True.
He's done a good job so far, but I guess you're just not sure whether it will continue. All right, here's a coach that I think we all got to be unsure of: Steve Sarkisian for Texas.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I think he's perfect in this category. Even when he was at his whole career, kind of, I feel like this almost fits because at Washington took over, I think like an 0-11 team, 0-12 team, whatever they were, and
0-12,
made them better. I don't know why I always think it's 0-11. I don't know why. I thought
it's been a long time since they went.
For some reason, 0-11 just sounds familiar, but I think I've done that before. And it's 0-12. Anyway, and he made them better, and but then he didn't get. It was 7-win Sark, right? Which is
7-win Sark,
pretty good, but it's not great. So now at Texas, he starts out 5-7 in 2021, which of course was not a good start. He inherited a decent amount of talent that should have been better. So that wasn't great. But this year, 2022, their advanced metrics were really good. Like the betting market valued them highly, SP Plus, all of those were valuing them like a borderline top 10 team, but they finished 8-5. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Was that a really good season or not? So going into year 3, I could see so many scenarios. Is he on the cusp of a playoff run with, if Quinn Ewers is healthy or if Arch comes in and does great, or is he going to go, 7-5 and get fired? I don't know. I'm unsure.
I agree. All right. Another guy in the state of Texas, Dana Holgorsen. I like Holgo as a character. He's good for college football, but I'm just not really sure. At West Virginia, he always had some fun offenses, but in his 7 years in the Big 12, mostly just kind of middle of the pack-ish. First 2 years at Houston, 7-13, and then kind of out of nowhere, 12-2 in 2021. that very good record, but they took advantage of not having to play the tougher AAC teams like Cincinnati or UCF during the regular season. They only finished 31st in SP Plus despite those 12 wins. And then this past year, they had so much, similar to BYU, they had so much returning production. They were kind of a trendy New Year's 6 pick, disappointing 8-5. Now they're heading into the Big 12. They have the 58th ranked recruiting class as we sit here, only ahead of Kansas in the original Big 12. They lose Clayton Tune at quarterback. And I think Houston can be a very good program, but at this point, I'm not sure if Hogo can be the guy to get him over the top.
Yeah, they threw a lot of money at him, back when he was first hired. That was a home run hit for them to bring him from West Virginia. So definitely disappointing so far. All right,
yes,
my guy.
No, but yeah,
well, a little disappointing.
Okay.
I mean, because who was at Houston before? They had
well, they
had Sumlin, and then after him it was Herman.
Yeah, was Herman, but then in between it was
I know, in between. Why am we blanking on this? Well, I'll get to my answer here, and you guys can think about it. So, Gus Malzahn is my.
It was.
Applewhite.
Yeah.
Applewhite.
Oh, that's right. Wow. Yeah. Applewhite. Yeah, he was disappointment. All right. Gus Malzahn is my pick. Another team that's heading to the new Big 12 at UCF. Obviously his tenure at Auburn was great for a long time and didn't finish real super poorly. He still fielded a competitive team there. So you're kind of wondering how is that going to translate in a little bit of a lower level. And he's done good, but not great. He's went 9-4 his first year, then 9-5. So it's good. It's good. But, do you think he's going to be able to take the next step? And it's hard to see it, especially when you look at who the talent he's bringing in. They're, near the bottom of that new formulated Big 12, just barely ahead of Kansas. So they're right there and kind of at the bottom. It's going to be hard to imagine them for Gus to take them up to the top of that newly formed Big 12. So I don't know how that's going to work. I'm really unsure of Gus Malzahn at this point.
All right. Well, there you have it. That'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. If you're listening to the audio version of this, be sure to check out our YouTube channel because we're going to have a lot more content on there every week. All of our now weekly audio episodes are going to be available on YouTube. And like I said, there'll be additional content on YouTube. So just search College Football Bros to find that on YouTube. Let me say YouTube one more time. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you next week.